Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today, I found it actually very interesting. It is an abduction case with kind of a twist, I guess, and it is the case of Tanya Kach. This was suggested by Misspanther, so thank you for that. Appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and of course if you have any more, please do let me know and I will get around to doing them. My list is quite big, so don't fret. If you want yours doing sooner, just comment it again, because sometimes, I don't know, things get a bit lost in my massive list. So yeah. Tanya Nicole Kach was born on the 14th of October in 1981 to parents Sherry Kohecki, apologies if I said that wrong, and Jerry Kach in Pennsylvania. Growing up, Tanya's family didn't really have a lot of money, and obviously that can always put a massive strain on family. It said that she didn't really have a great home life, and I believe that it was mainly due to her mother suffering from mental health issues. That's just, well, it's not just my opinion. There is some to back that up as well, but Tanya had a really good relationship with Sherry, and then like suddenly Sherry sort of changed, and I believe it was due to mental health issues. Because she started acting strange, she started doing these things, and yeah, they were struggling for money, but she eventually became addicted to alcohol, unfortunately, and she would turn aggressive with that. Sometimes she took her anger out on Tanya and would be aggressive towards her daughter. When Tanya turned 13, her parents did end up finally getting a divorce because their marriage wasn't very healthy for anyone involved. So they finally decided to split up, and they ended up in this legal battle for custody of Tanya. Tanya had to go ahead and testify in front of a judge about how Sherry had, like, I don't know, been aggressive towards her and things like that. And then Jerry, of course, got custody of Tanya, and Sherry ended up being sent to a mental institution for a while, like a psychiatric unit. So that's my reasoning as to why I believe that at the time of everything going downhill was that she probably had begun showing signs of mental illness. That obviously might not be the case. She might have just changed as a person. Just my thoughts on it anyway. Of course, all this did have an effect on Tanya. And the family, well, her and her dad decided that they were going to move to McKeesport to start over. It didn't take Jerry very long to meet someone. And this woman was also divorced, and she had a 7-year-old son. And they started up their relationship, and Jerry and Tanya ended up moving in with her and her son. The thing is, moving into this household came with very strict rules for Tanya. She got her own bedroom, I believe, but she didn't have a door in that bedroom, so she had like no privacy at all. She wasn't allowed to use the phone, which I don't know why, but she wasn't. It was like forbade. So yeah, I don't know. But a stepmom was pretty strict, and Jerry just went with everything that she said or did, and agreed with her every time. So obviously that frustrated Tanya. This is just going off obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm just going off what I found on the internet. So she kind of felt like her home life wasn't great again. She ended up going to Cornell Middle School. She was in 8th grade. And there, because she was dead shy, she didn't really make many friends. She did make friends, but they were kind of, I guess you could say, not the wrong crowd, but friends that would be inclined to scab school and pick fights and things like that. And that is the crowd sort of she ended up falling into. And I believe not long after this is when she started running away from home. She would often go to her mother, who was now out of the psychiatric unit, hoping that she could stay there, that she would finally get some, affection or whatever and love off her mother, who was getting better. And then she just ended up back at her dad's again. Like every time, it seems that she ran away quite a few times. At this point, Tanya was 14 years old, and then on the 10th of February in 1996, well, she just simply vanished. Nobody knew where she had gone. Nobody knew anything. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's explain before I jump too far ahead. She had actually befriended a man called Thomas Hose. Now I've read two things. I don't know which is which. I'm going to lean more towards security guard at the school, because I've seen that more in articles than this one. But I've also read that he was a janitor, so I don't know which is which. Security guard seems more prominent in him, so I guess you could be more inclined to believe that one. But yeah, Tom, as he was known by everyone, was not who everyone thought he was. He was sly. He was just not a very nice guy, and essentially a criminal. You will find out. But I'm not sure how he actually managed to do this either. He managed to convince the school counsellor to show him Tanya's private records because he said that he could help her perform better socially and academically at school. And they apparently did. I don't know. I don't get it, but they did. Tom had already formed a plan. Tanya thought it was innocent, thought that, you know, they were friends, he liked her, blah, blah, blah. But she was only 14, bearing in mind. And I guess she felt like she couldn't turn to her parents and talk to them about anything like this. She had very little friends in school. She was having problems at home. She was running away all the time. And this guy was there for her. He was there to support her, to chat to her, you know, to everything. He was just there. The thing was, he was 37 years old. She was 14. So obviously a huge age gap. But he was showing her affection. They began writing love letters to each other. She would secretly call him. And one day she ended up actually Skyping school. And they shared their first kiss together. I mean, she's 14. So obviously it's a child that he's doing this to, which is just gross. But she didn't know that. And it's just so heartbreaking. And they would continue to do so. They would continue to, she'd Skype school on occasion and meet up with him. She did not understand what this man's intentions were. And the heartbreaking thing was she began developing feelings for Tom. He was quite popular at school, you know, with all the girls, things like that. He had a clean record. He was a model employee, also everyone thought, and had no complaints about him or anything like that. There was just nothing. So, you know, you just wouldn't assume. Not that she would know that anyway. Tanya at 14 would not be able to check whether this guy was, you know, had a clean record. She'd be able to go off what people said about him, but the other kids were just as fooled as she was, I guess. Everyone was. After one particular argument with her father, she told Tom that she actually had plans to run away from home again. You know, she wanted to get out there. She'd had enough. And Tom said that she should do that and that she could come and live with him. Tanya had a crush on Tom, so she figured that it was fine, that she was in love with him, that why not? Why not run away from her troubled home to go and live with this man that she really liked? So that's what she did. She gathered up a few things and she just went. She left. Now, her parents didn't report her as missing straight away because she's done this so many times before. She's ran away, she's ended up at her mum's, and then she's always come back. But on this occasion, she did not come back. Time passes without word of Tanya, without word of Sherry to say that Tanya was there, and that was abnormal. So eventually the police was called to report her as missing. The police did look for her, but because she'd ran away before, they just figured that she'd run away again, I guess. So they didn't look for her that long, which is really sad because this time she had run away. This is why it's a bit of a strange case, because she had run away to go and live with him, but then the circumstances around it were just not good. You'll see what I mean. And that was about the 6th or 7th time she'd actually run away that year. So the police just figured that she ran away again, and that was that. Sherry found out that, you know, her daughter was missing. She panicked. She was racking her brain as to, you know, anything that she could figure out that would maybe lead her to where Tanya had gone or whatever. And she recalled that Tanya used her phone quite a lot when she was there to call someone. So she looks back on the phone records, she calls the number, and she ends up ringing Tom. Tom answers the phone. He says that he doesn't know Tanya really. He doesn't have a clue where she is. He's got nothing to do with it, yada, yada, yada. He said that he worked as I'm guessing, security guard at the school. That's what I'm going to go with anyway. Alarm bells were ringing in Sherry's head. And she did call the police, and she did let them know everything that she'd found out. But they didn't really seem interested in that, and they were more interested in searching Tanya's family's home for her rather than Tom's home for her. And obviously they found nothing in their homes because Tanya wasn't there. Tom actually lived with his parents and his son. And his son, I believe, was very young, so very impressionable kind of thing. And Tom went to massive lengths to keep Tanya hidden from his family. He would pretty much lock her away in his bedroom on the 2nd floor, and she wasn't allowed to leave, at all. Now, Tom had this bedroom with his son, and then with Tanya, so obviously he told his son just to never mention it and don't tell anyone. And it was said that his parents did not know that she lived there for pretty much all of the time that she lived there, being held captive in his bedroom, essentially. So Tanya gets there, she's bundled into this room. Tom suggests that she dyes her hair so that she looks different, which she does. And he constantly comes home and tells her lies that her parents were not out there looking for her when they were. They were desperately searching for Tanya. But it's basically sort of empowering himself more by saying, you know, they don't love you, they don't care about you, I'm the one that loves you and cares about you, kind of thing. And she believed him, which is sad because her family were actually you know, wanted to find her and she didn't think they did, which is just awful. Tanya was also given safety rules, as he called them. She had to use a bucket as a toilet because she weren't allowed to leave. She had to be as quiet as possible, walking on tiptoes so that she wouldn't create any noise. If anyone ever came, she would have to hide in the cupboard, well, the wardrobe, sorry. The only thing she could do for entertainment, because she was not allowed to leave this room, was watch telly, read books, things like that. I believe twice a week he allowed her to have a shower. He would lead her down to the basement where she would shower whilst everyone else was asleep. That happened 2 times a week. Obviously, they had sexual relations with each other, which I'm not going to get into, but they did. I guess it was consensual, but she can't give consent at 14 anyway, so that's sexual assault on a minor. She didn't know that, obviously. She would often just eat sort of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, bananas, and just drink canned drinks. And he was very particular about how she looked. Like, he always wanted her to be very thin and things like that. He didn't want her to put on any weight. And Tanya initially just thought everything was fine. She thought that she had to sacrifice some things for love and that what they were doing was totally fine. But eventually she did figure out that what they had was very much not normal. Their relationship, you know, was not really that, and she did figure that out, thankfully, eventually. 2 years after her disappearance, 2 bodies were actually found by police, and it was thought that they may be linked to Tanya and that there was possible serial killer in the area. This kind of sparked up Tanya's case again, and she was put on milk cartons. Her face was put on milk cartons, which is a thing that they did quite often. And thousands of these milk cartons with her face on were sent out, and it just sort of put her back in the public eye again. The police began looking into her case again. They looked into all these leads that they originally had, and honestly, I couldn't believe it, but they ended up at Tom's door. They literally followed the lead of Tom, I guess that the mother had gave them, ended up at his door to speak to him. And what comes of it is just insane, because he answers the door. The police are there, and he tells them that his parents are asleep, they're elderly, and that, you know, they can't come in because of that. And guess what? Well, they accept that, and they never come back. Seriously. I don't know why. If you are looking into the case and you're following up on original leads, you go there in the first place. Why would you not go back? Okay, fair enough. You have nothing on him. You just want to chat. He's saying that you can't come in, blah, blah, blah. But why would you not then follow that up again? I honestly have no idea, but they did not. For 4 years of captivity, Tanya was not allowed to leave pretty much the room, the house, anything. But I guess he finally began to trust her, trust her a little bit more, maybe you could say. In June of 2000, he ended up coming up with a new identity for her. He called her Nikki Allen, and he began introducing her to his parents as his girlfriend, who he was going to sort of move out with, live in an apartment with, I don't know. They were going to live together. So I guess at that point she was allowed out of the room, because then, you know, they thought she was his girlfriend. I don't know. He began letting her out, introducing her to people as his girlfriend, as I've said. And he promised her that he would look for an apartment for them to live in. She was 18 at this point, and she was really excited about that. Well, you would be. She'd been literally stuffed in a room for the past 4 years, not allowed to leave. So of course she wants to live in a big apartment with him. And she thought she loved him, so she was excited. Tom then decided that, you know, she could go out. He gave her some money and allowed her to go and buy herself some clothes. After this, she was allowed out alone a few times just to start off with, but she had to be back by a strict time. He would also tell her that if she ever told anyone, he would kill her and her family, things like that, to try and keep her more under control if she ever started to question their love. Tom eventually allowed Tanya to get a job under her false name. She started working in a thrift store, and then she started working in a convenience store. This convenience store was called JJ's Deli Mart, and it was owned by Joe Spazio. Now, I believe Tom was probably there when Tanya was writing down the information. He was very secretive on the details, like where she lived and her phone number and things like that. And Joe got a weird vibe from it straight away. He kind of felt like he didn't know the entire truth. He didn't even comprehend what could have been happening to her fully. Joe was thinking that Tanya was like a victim of domestic abuse, and he really wanted to help her. So she would go to work and he would sort of ask questions and things like that. And at first she was secretive, you know, she thought what she had with Tom was normal, but she soon began to believe and realise that it actually was not normal at all. Despite that, it took her 8 months of working in that job, getting to know Joe and his family, to finally open up to him after he, you know, he kept trying, he kept pressing, he wanted to help her, and he would just keep asking her questions and things like that and telling her that it's okay, you can tell me what happened, you know, things like that. And of course, when she did finally reveal who she was, what had been happening to her, it was a massive shock to Joe. He thought she was a domestic abuse victim, not that she had been essentially, I don't want to say kidnapped, but I do want to say kidnapped. Is it kidnapped? She went of her own accord, but she knew no better. She was a child, and then he kept her in his room. So whatever you want to call that. And then at this point, she was 24, bearing in mind. She'd been there in captivity for 10 years, and he just couldn't believe it. Like you wouldn't. You would just be so gobsmacked. That was the 21st of March 2006 when she finally broke down into tears and revealed who she was. She actually said to his wife, "If you go on a website for missing children, my face will be on there." Which, can you imagine somebody actually saying that to you? Your jaw would just fall off. Not even drop, it would just fall off. She asked him to send police to the house. He told her to go home, act like nothing, you know, nothing was up, act normal, and then the police would arrive, which they did. He called the police, she went home, and then Tom was arrested and Tanya was finally free. Tanya was elated to be reunited with her family. Like, there's a picture of her and her dad hugging after 10 years of them looking for her. She was finally home. Unfortunately, she did become estranged from her father after that, and I believe they no longer have a relationship, which is quite sad. I just like this is a happy ending because Tanya escaped. But anyway, in 2007, Tom pled guilty to a whole host of charges. As you can imagine, he was found guilty because he pled guilty and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to a minimum of 15 years in prison. In 2011, Tanya went on to write a best-selling book. It was called Memoir of a Milk Carton Kid, the Tanya Kach story. And a couple of years after she had finally been released from the hell that she was living in, she met a man who would eventually become her husband, called Carl McCrum. They ended up getting married in September of 2018, and she got a family from that. I don't believe that she's actually had children herself, but she gained stepchildren who also had children, so she gained step-grandchildren from that. And she's very happily married. Now, you may be thinking, like, he was sentenced in 2007 to 15 years. And if you do the math, 2020 will have been 15 years. So, as recently as literally the 9th of February in 2020, which recording this video was like, I don't know, 4 days ago at this point, he was released from prison. It was very much dreaded by Tanya, of course. She has received a lot of support for it, you know. But he is out, he is on the sex offenders register, and if you want to look online, you can find the details of sort of the area he lives in and things like that, because obviously all of that is made public. So yeah, he is now out after having served his time. Let's honestly hope that he never ever does anything like this again. Obviously this story got a happy ending. Tanya survived. She managed to escape after 10 years. She managed to find happiness in her husband, in her new family, and that is just amazing. Obviously, she has scars from everything she went through, but, you know, she's a strong woman and she's moving forward with her life. But yeah, that is the end of this case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Tanya Kach. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.